Rain pounded the pavement as Roman Pierce yanked his hoodie tighter around his face, one hand gripping his son's backpack, the other hauling a busted umbrella that had more wires than fabric left. "Dad. You said we'd get pizza," Declan whined from behind, hopping puddles and dodging tourists outside the Grand Meridian Hotel. Roman paused just long enough to glance back at his son. "I said if the shop paid me today, we'd get pizza." "But they didn't, so it's grilled cheese night, all right," Declan groaned dramatically. "That's not even a real dinner," a loud shout cut him off. Roman's head snapped toward the entrance of the hotel just in time to see a man in a black suit grab a woman's wrist. She stumbled back, nearly slipping on the wet marble. Her voice was sharp, panicked. "Let go of me," Roman didn't think. He dropped Declan's backpack and crossed the sidewalk in 3 long strides. "Hey, get your hands off her." The man turned, eyes narrowing. He looked like security, or thought he was. "This is none of your business." Roman didn't flinch. "It is now." The guy didn't get a second chance. Roman shoved him back, planting himself between the woman and the man like a wall. She was breathing hard, soaked from the rain, her chestnut hair clinging to her cheeks. Her eyes wide, dark, guarded, locked with Roman's. "You okay?" he asked. She blinked, then nodded. "Why, yeah. Thank you." The man raised his hands, muttering something about misunderstanding, and stormed back inside the hotel. Roman turned to her. "You know that guy, unfortunately." He studied her face. Her coat was expensive, her heels high-end, but she looked shaken. "You want me to call someone?" "Security, I'll be fine," she said quickly, then hesitated. "Actually, would you walk me to my car?" Roman looked back at Declan, who was watching from under the hotel awning, still holding his umbrella upside down. "Sure," Roman said, "just give me a sec." He jogged over to Declan. "Stay right here, I'll be 2 minutes." Declan frowned. "You always say that. This time I mean it." He returned to the woman, who was already pulling a fob from her pocket. They walked together down the block, her heels clicking against the wet sidewalk. "I'm Roman," he offered. She glanced at him, then away. "Naomi." They reached the sleek black car parked at the curb. Roman raised an eyebrow. "Nice ride." She gave a half smile. "It gets me places." He opened her door and she paused before getting in. "Thank you, Roman, for stepping in." Roman shrugged. "Didn't feel right, leaving you like that." Naomi looked at him, really looked this time. He was drenched, wearing a threadbare hoodie and jeans that had seen better days, but his eyes were steady, kind, protective. "Would you let me buy you and your son dinner?" Roman blinked. "What? You didn't even hesitate back there. Let me say thank you properly. I know a place around the corner." He hesitated. He didn't do handouts. But Declan hadn't had anything but cereal since breakfast, and this woman. Something about her didn't scream charity. "You sure?" She nodded. "All right, but only if you're joining us." Naomi smiled, the first real one he'd seen from her. "Deal." The restaurant was dimly lit, classy without being pretentious. Linen tablecloths, soft jazz, and food that smelled like it cost more than Roman's rent. Naomi didn't flinch at any of it. She waved off the waiter like she'd been there 100 times. Declan dug into the pasta like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. Roman kept staring at the menu, pretending he wasn't counting how many bills he had in his pocket. Naomi leaned in. "You don't have to worry." "It's on me," he looked at her. "I don't like owing people. You don't owe me. I invited you." Roman studied her again. She wasn't like the stuck-up guests he sometimes delivered food to at the hotel. She was calm, elegant, but not cold. And she looked at him like she wasn't trying to figure out how he ended up broke. "You work at the hotel?" he asked. Her lips twitched. "Not exactly." Roman raised a brow. "What does that mean?" "I'm involved in the company that owns it." "Oh," she sipped her wine, watching his reaction carefully. "So you're one of those behind-the-curtain types. You could say that. Must be nice." Naomi tilted her head. "It's a lot of things. Nice isn't always one of them." Roman nodded slowly. "Yeah. I get that." Declan giggled at something his server said. Naomi looked over at him, her expression softening. "Your son's great." "Yeah, he is," Roman said, his voice warmer. "He's my whole world." She looked back at him. "His mom left 2 years ago. Said she wasn't cut out for the mom thing." He cleared his throat. "Been just us ever since." Naomi was quiet for a second. Then she said, "You're doing a good job." Roman gave a short laugh. "You barely know me." I saw what mattered. After dinner, Naomi insisted on walking them back to their car. Roman's beat-up truck parked 2 blocks away. She didn't flinch when she saw it, just smiled. "Thank you again," she said softly. Roman looked at her under the streetlight. "You ever need someone to step in again, I'm around." Naomi's eyes flickered. "I might take you up on that." He opened the passenger door for Declan, then turned back to her. "You're not what I expected, neither are you." Then, before he could say anything else, she leaned in and kissed his cheek. Roman froze. "I'll see you around, Roman Pierce." She walked away, heels echoing against the pavement, disappearing into the night like she belonged to another world. And maybe she did. But Roman couldn't stop thinking about the way her eyes lingered on him. Like maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to belong to it anymore. Roman balanced Declan's lunchbox in one hand and a rusted socket wrench in the other, crouched beside the Honda he'd been trying to patch up since 8 that morning. The garage bay reeked of motor oil, coffee, and hopelessness. His boss had promised a check by Friday, but the last 2 Fridays had come and gone with nothing but excuses. "Dad, you forgot my juice pouch," Declan said, pointing at the brown paper bag. Roman sighed, wiped his hand on a rag, and retrieved the crumpled pouch wedged between the sandwich and a bruised apple. "Here, and you're late for the bus." Declan made a face. "It's still 2 blocks away." Roman handed over the bag. "Then run fast." As soon as Declan darted off, Roman turned back to the car, trying to remember if he'd already tightened the belt tensioner. His knuckles were raw, his joints stiff. He was 3 weeks behind on rent and had a stack of utility bills shoved under the seat of his truck. The last thing he expected was to see Naomi again. Her voice came from just outside the garage, low and pointed, talking to someone on the phone. Roman looked up, startled to find her standing in the entrance, her coat replaced by a tailored navy blazer over dark jeans, her hair swept up. She ended the call with a clipped goodbye and stepped into the dim space like she belonged there. "You always show up just when I'm about to give up," Roman said, standing. Naomi's expression softened. "Then I guess I have good timing." He wiped his hands on his jeans. "This isn't exactly a 5-star welcome. Something wrong?" She hesitated, glancing around the garage before answering. "I'm not here because something's wrong. I wanted to see you again." Roman raised a brow. "Most people avoid this place unless their car's smoking." Naomi crossed her arms. "Most people don't owe someone dinner after he saves them from a jerk with a badge and an ego. Pretty sure you paid for dinner already." "That wasn't the favor I wanted to repay." Roman gestured toward the chaos behind him. "You sure you want to be seen here?" "Doesn't exactly scream boardroom." Naomi looked straight at him. "That's not what I care about." He studied her. There was something different, less guarded, more deliberate. She wasn't here by accident. "So what is it you do care about?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked further in, past the oil stains and scattered tools until she stood just a foot away. "I have an offer." Roman crossed his arms. "This better not be a job cleaning windows." Naomi laughed once. "No, it's not that. I'm organizing a charity gala. It's this weekend. I need someone to assist with coordination, someone who can handle logistics, keep things moving behind the scenes. I thought of you." He blinked. "You want me to help run a $1 billion event. I want you to keep it from falling apart. You clearly know how to handle pressure. You think fast, stay calm, and don't take crap from anyone. That's exactly what I need." Roman shook his head. "I fix cars and raise a kid. That's my lane. You've got people in tuxedos and champagne fountains. You really think I fit in over there?" Naomi's voice was steady. "You don't have to fit in. You just have to show up and be exactly who you are." He wasn't sure whether to be flattered or insulted. "This some kind of social experiment? It's not a joke, Roman." He glanced toward the street, where Declan's bus had long since disappeared. "And what do I do with my son while I'm playing butler to billionaires?" Naomi pulled a card from her pocket and handed it to him. "There's a vetted childcare service we use for staff, fully covered, or you can bring him. We'll work around it." Roman stared at the card. It looked more expensive than his last paycheck. "What's the catch?" "No catch," she said. "Just trust." His mouth tightened. "That's not something I hand out easily." "I know," Naomi said quietly, "but I think you want to." He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the car, then at the grime under his nails, then at her perfectly polished shoes. You really think someone like me can walk into your world and not get laughed out of the room? I don't care who laughs, she said. I care who shows up when it matters. That stopped him. He turned back to the car, fiddled with a bolt that didn't need tightening. Then he said, I'll think about it. Naomi gave a small nod. I'll send the address. It's black tie. You'll need a suit. Roman gave a dry laugh. Right. I'll just fish one out of the glove box. I'll handle it, she said. Your size, he looked at her, surprised. You're serious? Naomi stepped back toward the door. You'll see. She walked out without waiting for a response, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and something else possibility. That night, Roman found a garment bag hanging from his front door. Inside was a tailored black tuxedo, crisp white shirt, and polished dress shoes that looked like they'd never touched a sidewalk. There was no note. Just a folded invitation with his name embossed in silver and the address of the gala printed in elegant script. He stared at it for a long time. Then he looked at Declan, curled up asleep on the couch, arms wrapped around a threadbare stuffed bear. Roman knew every second he spent in Naomi's world would be a risk. But something about her, about the way she saw him, not as a charity case but as someone capable, made him want to take it. He hung the tux on the back of the door and sat down beside his son, silent, thoughtful. Maybe it was time to try something different, or maybe it was time to fall harder than he ever had. The gala was held in a glass-walled rooftop ballroom overlooking the skyline, the kind of place Roman had only seen in movie scenes on TVs he repaired for gas money. The elevator opened directly into a flood of crystalline light, violins echoing beneath a murmur of voices dressed in couture and money. He stepped forward slowly, adjusting the unfamiliar collar at his throat. The tux fit perfectly, but it felt like someone else's skin. Declan was with the on-site childcare Naomi had arranged, supervised in a lounge room 2 floors down. Roman had checked twice before stepping into the event. He wasn't about to leave his kid with strangers without making sure everything was airtight. Roman, Naomi said behind him. He turned and nearly lost his breath. She wore a deep sapphire gown that shimmered as she moved, her hair swept low, revealing a delicate diamond pendant resting just above her collarbone. Her eyes, steady and unreadable, met his like she'd been waiting for the exact moment he'd walk through those gold-trimmed doors. You clean up well, she said, her voice low. I feel like I should be parking someone's car, Roman replied, Naomi's brow lifted. You have no idea how many people in here are pretending they belong. He gave a short laugh. Yeah, what are they pretending to be? Important, untouchable, interested in charity. A waiter passed by and she took 2 glasses of champagne, offering him one. Roman hesitated, then took it. So this is your world, he said, glancing around at the crowd. No, she said. This is just the costume party. Before he could ask what she meant, a tall man in a navy suit with silver cufflinks approached them, his eyes flicking over Roman with thinly veiled surprise. Naomi, the man said smoothly. You're a vision. Roman recognized the type immediately: expensive haircut, confident posture, the scent of cologne that cost more than groceries for a month. Lawrence, Naomi said evenly. You remember I told you about Roman. I recall you mentioned someone, Lawrence replied, extending a hand. You're the mechanic. Roman shook it without flinching. That's me. And you must be the guy who thinks he's more important than he is. Naomi's lips parted slightly, but she didn't interfere. Lawrence's smile thinned. Charming. She doesn't need charming, Roman said, turning to Naomi. She needs honest. Lawrence let out a soft breath and turned away without another word. Naomi arched an eyebrow. Well, that was direct. You brought me here because I don't play games, right? I did, she said. And I'm not sorry. She led him through the crowd then, her hand brushing his arm lightly as she introduced him to a few key people: event staff, security leads, logistics personnel. Roman took in every detail. The way the kitchen ran like a machine behind the scenes, how the AV crew was behind by almost half an hour, the silent panic of a florist whose centerpiece had collapsed. By the time the speeches began, Roman was already directing staff, rerouting servers, and fixing a stage microphone cable using a paperclip and a roll of tape. Naomi stood behind him, arms folded, watching. Do you always take over rooms you've just walked into? She asked. Only when they're falling apart and the people in charge are too busy sipping champagne to notice. Naomi stepped closer. You impress people without even trying. I'm not here to impress anyone. Then why did you come? Roman paused. Because you asked me to. Their eyes locked, and the air between them shifted something softer now, heavier. Then applause broke out as the final speaker finished his speech, and Naomi glanced away, her expression unreadable. Later, as the ballroom emptied and staff hurried to clean up, Naomi stood at one of the tall windows, watching the city lights. Roman approached, rolling his shoulders. I didn't break anything, that's progress. You fixed a dozen things, including the program schedule, she said. You saved tonight. He leaned against the glass beside her. You could have had anyone in that role. Why me? She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, because you don't want anything from me. Roman looked at her, puzzled. What do you mean? Everyone in my life has an angle, a move. A price. You didn't even want dinner, Roman, he frowned. That's not true. I wanted pizza. You just upgraded it. She laughed, her head tilting. You're the first person in a long time who sees me, not what I represent. And what is it you represent exactly? Naomi turned toward him, lips parting as if to answer, but something stopped her. Instead, she said, Can I show you something? He nodded once. She led him through a side hallway, past locked service doors until they reached a private terrace. It was quiet, secluded, with a single bench facing the skyline. She sat, and he followed. This is the only place I can breathe at these things, she said. Roman looked out at the glowing city. You ever think about walking away from it all? Every day, she said, but I have responsibilities, a board, a legacy I didn't ask to inherit. He glanced at her. You ever do something just because it makes you happy? Naomi looked at him, and her voice dropped. I came to the garage because I wanted to see you again. He inhaled slowly, heart suddenly louder in his chest. You're not what I expected either. Naomi reached for his hand. Her fingers were cool, steady. Then maybe we stop expecting things and just see where it leads. Roman didn't reply. He leaned in, closing the distance between them, and kissed her. It wasn't rushed or explosive, it was slow, certain, as if they both knew the world outside the terrace would demand explanations they weren't ready to give. When they pulled apart, Naomi kept her hand in his. I don't know what this is yet, she said. I don't either, Roman replied. But for the first time in a long time, I want to find out. She nodded. Behind them, the city kept shining, but for the first time, it didn't feel so far away. Roman adjusted Declan's jacket collar as they stood just outside the towering glass entrance of the Pierce automotive shop, the place Roman had poured the last 5 years into, one busted engine and scraped knuckle at a time. But today, the peeling paint on the signage and the flickering security light didn't feel like defeat, not anymore. Are you nervous? Declan asked, bouncing slightly on his toes. Roman looked down, then back at the shop. A little. Then why are you smiling? Roman didn't realize he was until Naomi's car pulled into the lot. She stepped out in a fitted blazer and dark slacks, her hair tied back, simple and sharp. She wasn't dressed like a CEO today. She looked like someone showing up for something that mattered more than business. You brought him, Naomi said, her eyes softening as she looked at Declan. He's part of the deal, Roman said. No surprise packages. Declan tilted his head. Is this your girlfriend? Naomi's lips curved. That depends. Am I? Roman exhaled through a grin. Pretty sure we passed that checkpoint. She extended her hand to Declan. Nice to officially meet you. He shook her hand, then leaned in close to Roman. Are we still getting lunch after this? Roman nodded. That was the deal. Naomi walked past them, glancing toward the shop windows. You sure about this? Roman followed her gaze. I've never been more sure of anything. Inside, 3 men in suits were already seated near the shop's small office area. They rose when Naomi entered. One of them, tall, older, with a silver tie and a sharp jawline, stepped forward. Naomi, I assume this is the man you negotiated for. Roman took a step forward before she could answer. Roman Pierce, I own the shop. The man's eyes flicked to Declan, and Roman met his gaze. And this is my son. He's here because this meeting affects both of us. Naomi placed a folder on the desk between them. Roman's proposal is outlined here. We're not talking acquisition. It's a partnership. Pierce Automotive retains full operational control. My company provides capital in exchange for a minority stake and exclusive rights on corporate fleet service for the next 3 years. The man's brows lifted. You're serious? Naomi didn't blink. Completely. Roman opened the folder. Every page had been reviewed with him already, line by line the night before, when Naomi had sat beside him on his couch while Declan built a spaceship out of cereal boxes. The oldest man turned to Roman. Why not just take a payout and walk away? Because I believe in what I built, Roman said. And now I've got someone in my corner who sees it too. He didn't look at Naomi when he said it, but he felt her eyes on him. An hour later, the signatures were done. The men left with handshakes and polite nods, but the air felt different, settled, official. Naomi leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely. You're now technically part of a billion-dollar portfolio. How does it feel? Roman leaned beside her. Feels like I might finally be able to replace the soda machine, she laughed. Start with the roof. Declan tugged on Naomi's sleeve. Can we get food now? Roman nodded toward the truck. Let's go. They ended up at a quiet bistro. Naomi had chosen something tucked away from the skyline and suited more for comfort than appearances. Declan ordered pancakes, even though it was well past noon, and Naomi didn't blink twice. Roman watched her as she helped Declan solve a crossword from the kids' menu, her brow furrowing as she tried to remember the name of a sea creature with 5 arms. He leaned back in his chair. You ever think about what comes next? Naomi put down the crayon. Every day. But for once, I don't feel like I have to plan it alone. Roman reached for her hand across the table. Neither do I. Declan looked up suddenly. Are you gonna marry her? Naomi raised an eyebrow in mock surprise. That escalated quickly. Roman didn't flinch. What if I said yes? Naomi turned to him. Then I'd ask if it was because you're in love with me. I am, Roman said. I'm not good at saying it all the time, but I know it. Naomi's fingers curled around his. Then my answer's yes. Declan threw both hands in the air. Do I get to be the ring bearer? You're the reason we found each other, Naomi said. You can be whatever you want. They left the bistro and walked through the park nearby. Roman carried Declan on his shoulders while Naomi held his arm tightly, as if letting go would undo everything. Do you ever miss it? He asked quietly as they passed a fountain. Naomi tilted her head. Miss what? The distance. The walls, the safety of people not knowing who you really are, she thought for a moment. No, not anymore, because for the first time someone sees me and still wants to stay. That's better than safe. Roman paused. I didn't fall for the money, I didn't even fall for the name. I know, she said. You fell for the woman standing in the rain, trying not to fall apart, he nodded. And I'd do it again. They kept walking, the city humming around them, but for the first time it didn't feel so loud. It felt like a song they all knew the words to now. Naomi pulled a small velvet box from her coat pocket and handed it to Declan. What's this? He asked. Roman's brows pulled together. What is that? Naomi grinned. Open it. Inside was a key, a gold one, engraved with a small lightning bolt. Roman stared at it. What's it for? Naomi leaned in. The new house. It has a backyard, a real kitchen, and a garage that fits more than one car. It's ours, all of ours. Declan gasped. We're moving? Roman's voice caught. You bought a house, we bought it, Naomi said. Together, I just signed first. Roman pulled her close, kissed her forehead, then her lips. You're insane, I'm in love, she said. And just like that, the man who had spent years fighting to stay afloat found himself standing in the middle of everything he never dared to ask for. And this time, he wasn't alone. A chorus of birdsong drifted through the open windows as Naomi stood barefoot in the sunlit kitchen, slicing strawberries, and listening to the sound of Declan's laughter echo from the backyard. The new house was still half filled with unpacked boxes and furniture waiting for final places, but it already felt like home. The kind of home she'd never had earned, not through inheritance or image, but through choosing something real. Roman walked in, shirt sleeves rolled up, a few streaks of sawdust still clinging to his arms from fixing the swing he'd promised Declan he'd hang before the end of the week. He didn't head straight for coffee. Instead, he came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin on her shoulder. You cut them the wrong way, he said. Naomi glanced down at the strawberries. Is there a right way? When you're 8 and everything has to be symmetrical, yes. She smiled without looking at him. Then you can do the next batch. He kissed her neck lightly and reached for a berry anyway. Deal. Declan's been outside for almost an hour. He hasn't asked for a snack or a screen once. Because he's got that ridiculous water blaster he's convinced can take down a tree, Roman said, moving to the sink to rinse his hands. I told him if he breaks another garden gnome, he's on cleanup duty. Naomi dried her hands and leaned against the counter. You're good with him. He didn't turn around. I'm trying. You don't have to try, she said. You just are. Roman dried his hands slowly and looked at her. You know, I used to think I had to fight for everything, that if I didn't hustle hard enough, it'd all disappear. You don't think that anymore. I still work hard, but now I know I don't have to do it alone. He stepped closer. That's what you gave me, not just the house. Not just the business. You gave me someone to stand still with. Naomi reached for his face, brushing a speck of sawdust from his jaw. I used to think stillness was weakness. I was raised to keep moving, keep climbing. But now, I wake up and hear you making Declan's cereal, and I don't want anything else. He kissed her then longer, deeper than the soft, careful kisses of early days. This one was rooted, firm, the kind of kiss that answered years of questions neither of them had ever dared to ask. A loud splash from the backyard broke them apart. Should we check if he flooded the hydrangeas again? Naomi asked, already walking toward the door. He'll deny it either way, Roman replied, grabbing a towel and following her out. Outside, Declan was soaked from head to toe, grinning wildly as he pointed the water blaster at a row of defenseless lawn chairs. Truce, Roman called out. Declan narrowed his eyes. State your terms. Naomi picked up the garden hose from the patio. You're outnumbered. Declan let out a shriek and bolted toward the other side of the yard. Naomi chased him, laughing, water spraying across the lawn. Roman sat down on the edge of the porch, watching them, stretching his legs out and leaning back on his hands. He hadn't expected this life. Not the woman who walked into his world in high heels and left footprints on his heart. Not a home that held laughter in its walls. Not the feeling that, for once, he didn't have to brace for something to go wrong. That evening, after the towels were hung and dinner was finished, Roman tucked Declan into bed. The boy was half asleep before his head hit the pillow, murmuring something about needing a water cannon upgrade for next time. Roman turned off the light and closed the door softly. Naomi was waiting in their room, curled up on the window seat with a book in her lap and a quiet look on her face. He sat beside her. You've been thinking, she nodded. I got a call today, from the board. Roman tensed slightly. Is it about the shop? No, she said, about me. They want me to take over full time. Step in as CEO officially, no more acting title, no more oversight. He was quiet for a moment. What do you want? She looked at him. I want to say no, Roman blinked. You're sure? I am. I thought I had to become that to prove something to myself. To them, but I don't need that anymore. I want to build something different, something that's mine, not inherited. I want to invest in things that matter, like your shop, like people who don't get seen. Roman took her hand. You're not walking away from power. You're choosing your own kind of power. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And I want to do it with you. They sat there for a while, watching the stars blink into view, quiet, certain, without needing fanfare. Months passed. The shop expanded, adding a second bay and hiring 2 new mechanics from the local trade school. Naomi started a community fund, quietly backing women-led small businesses that had been denied traditional loans. Roman helped her vet every applicant, looking not for perfect resumes but for grit. Declan thrived. He made new friends, started soccer, and insisted on building a go-kart with Roman that summer. Naomi helped paint it navy blue and gold. One Saturday evening, Roman stood in the backyard, adjusting the twinkle lights strung from the trees. Naomi stepped out wearing a simple white sundress, barefoot, her hair loose around her shoulders. You ready? She asked. He turned and smiled. Yeah, let's do this. They didn't want a church or a ballroom. They chose home. Friends and neighbors filled the yard. Declan wore a little suit and walked Naomi down the aisle to the soft melody of live strings. Roman waited under a wooden arch Naomi had helped him build, his hands steady, his eyes locked on hers. When she reached him, she didn't say, I do, in a whisper. She said it like a vow carved into stone. Roman answered with no hesitation, his voice full of truth. I do, I always have. They kissed as the sun dipped low, and the world didn't explode or change, it simply felt right. Later, under the glow of lights and the laughter of people who mattered, Naomi danced barefoot on the grass while Roman spun her once, then again, like they'd been dancing together for 10 years. And when the night quieted and they stood alone on the porch watching Declan asleep in a hammock, Naomi turned to Roman and whispered, "We made this." Roman looked at her, his wife, and nodded. "Yeah, and we're just getting started."